Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here live on Insight Timer for the second episode of the podcast, The Inner Resolution. So, this podcast, if you watched the first episode, or if you missed it, I'm going to quickly recap what we covered in the first episode. So, the idea of the Inner Resolution podcast, actually the Inner Resolution philosophy, it's really about exploring two ways, two paths that come together to create that inner peace that we're meant to have. I see Evie. Good to see you here. Thank you for being live here. So the two paths that we explored, the come together in a hot air balloon analogy. So when you're driving or managing a hot air balloon, you have two forces that are meant to oppose themselves, to oppose each other, but at the same time, when you manage those two forces, that's when you get the best results with your hot air balloon. And that's the analogy with the personal development. And to feel more alive, you need to manage those two paths, those two forces. So with the hot air balloon, as we saw in episode 1, to manage to drive, let's say, the hot air balloon, you have to push hot air in the balloon at the same time that you have to manage the weights that are holding down the balloon while you're building up your momentum, your lift. If you do only focus on the lift, so pushing hot air in the balloon, you'll need a lot of hot air to start moving, to start feeling the difference in what you're doing, because you have those weights that are holding back the balloon. And also, or the on the flip side, if you only manage the weights, so you're ready to go, you undo the weights from your balloon, but you don't push hot air in the balloon, then you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to feel the balloon's going to feel lighter, but because there's no hot air in it, you're not going to go anywhere. So it's the same thing with our personal development, our when we want to feel more alive, the deepening of our inner peace. We have two similar forces or two paths that we need to explore to get the best results. So to do a parallel with the hot air balloon analogy, pushing hot air in the balloon is the equivalent of what I call the sadhana approach. So it's the equivalent of aligning the different energies inside of us, so we get the best lift, so we get the energy, we get the inspiration, we get the motivation, which is parallel to pushing hot air in the balloon. If we only do that, we'll get some results, but there is still the weights that are holding us back, the weights that are important when we kind of set up our balloon. But then when we're ready to lift off, we need to manage the weights too. And the weights, the parallel with that, it's the internal conflicts that are holding us back. So it can be an internal conflict, like two values conflicting in a specific situation. It can be two different ideas, two different projects. We don't really know where to focus. It can be something that's happening inside of us in conflict with something external, so a circumstance, a comment, somebody else, something we see, something we hear, and it creates a conflict within us. So if we only push hot air in our balloon, so if we only deal with what energizes us, what lifts us up, we're going to get some results because we're still being held back by some of the weights that we're carrying. So the idea is to balance that approach, so the sadhana approach that lifts us up, with the 7 levels of conflict resolution, which deals with the conflicts that are happening inside of us. So we're pushing hot air in the balloon and we're managing the weights in a way that we get the best combination, and our lift off with the hot air balloon is as easy and as simple as it can be. So the same thing to deepen our inner peace, to grow, to find our sweet spot in our personal development. It's always about balancing the sadhana approach, so to energize ourselves, to align ourselves, to be able to function optimally, and at the same time we address the weights that are holding us back. So then the energy that we put, the alignment that we have, will be much simpler, much easier, because we're dealing with what is holding us back. So the combination of those two approaches, the sadhana approach and the 7 levels of conflict resolution, the combination of those gives us the best results when we want to move forward. So when we feel somehow, that it's life seems to be more difficult or more challenging than it should be, we feel it should be, then it's probably because that balance, the combination, is not balanced. We're focusing too much on one of the two sides. So we're either focusing too much on our conflicts, or we're focusing too much on our alignment, and then it kind of one kind of annuls the other one because we're too focused. It's really about balancing both. So a little bit of alignment, a little bit of releasing, and back and forth until we find our sweet spots. So I hope that makes sense. We're live on the Insight Timer. You might be watching the replay of this episode. I'm gonna switch my position a little bit. You might be watching the replays, one of the replay of those of this episode. So all the shows, once they are live, once we go through the live, they're available on YouTube and Spotify and a few other platforms on the audio format. But whether you're live now or you're watching the replay, also what we covered in the first episode is that these podcast episodes are meant to guide you through some type of exploration. So each episode we go through 5 questions and we explore them together. And it's meant, the purpose of this podcast, those episodes, this podcast is meant to guide you through that reflection. I don't have the answers for you. I don't have the answers that will either align you or help you release the weights. I can guide you through the approaches, through the process, but it's really about an invitation for you to I was going to say indulge. That might not be the best word, but it's to lean into that exploration. So about those 5 questions, we're going to jump to the first one and see where it leads us. So from those questions, remember that whatever you put in the chat, whether it's live or you're watching the recordings, it is public. So keep that in mind. You can share whatever you want to share, but keep in mind that it is public. So some of those reflections might bring you a little bit deeper. It's really about just exploring what comes up when we explore those questions. So the first one is, when did you last stop and actually check in with yourself. So I'll give you like a few seconds to actually check in with yourself, and then we'll go into a little bit of an exploration for that question. You can take a deep breath in, hold it a bit, deep breath, exhale deeply. You can close your eyes. Whatever feels good at this moment, you can indulge in that moment. And the idea to check in, to actually take the time to check in, is that we often, or I would say we often miss the opportunity, or we rarely do it. I have for me, I have a on these on these secret, not secret, but on those devices, I have a notification, a daily notification that reminds me to stop and quickly reflect on what I'm feeling in this moment. And it's important that we do that. I need a notification on my phone to remind myself to do it on a daily basis. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. That's not the point. Is that it's important to come back to ourselves, to check in with ourselves on what is happening, what is actually happening in this particular moment. And then when we check in and we get used to the two approaches, then we can kind of figure out what needs to be done. What do I need in this moment to feel a little bit uh, deeper in peace? Do I need to align myself a little more? Do I need to release some of the weights that I am carrying? And with that exploration, with that check-in, then I can take specific and relevant steps to bring me into a deeper state of peace, to grow, to better understand what is going on. And it's the idea is the inner resolution philosophy. It's that it all starts from within. You'll see in the description and in the various platforms that you may be viewing this, there's a key phrase that you'll see often, even more if you go on the website, the innerresolutionpodcast.com. It's peace comes from within. That's kind of the slogan of the approach of the philosophy, that peace comes from within. It means it starts within, and that's where we need to go when the world is crazy out there, when it's chaos or chaotic. Then we need to go within and see what's going on. So that's where those check-ins are important on a daily basis. I'm checking in internally to see what to better understand what is the most relevant next step for me. What do I need for my peace in this moment? So Evie has a comment. I checked in with myself appropriately half an hour ago doing a meditation on another live. That's great. The However you feel, whatever resonates the most for you to check in. Sometimes it's in meditation, sometimes it's with breath work, sometimes we're at work and like in between two meetings, we kind of check in quickly to gauge, like, okay, do I need to realign some energy in me? Do I need to release what I'm carrying? Am I in conflict with something? What type of emotions are coming up? And when we do this regularly, we can definitely deepen our inner peace and deepen our practice our daily practice. So, when did you last stop and actually check in with yourself? It's not the idea of that is not that we need to judge whatever comes up. if you haven't actually checked in with yourself in days or weeks or months, then it's not about feeling bad about it. It's about understanding that now you're doing it, and that's the important part. We'll get into the two. I got two questions to share more of the alignment process and the releasing process. So we'll get into that. But right now, the only thing that you need to bring to your awareness is how are you feeling right now? What's coming up when you're actually stopping and checking in with yourself? So I'll leave you to reflect on that. And in the meantime, before we get deeper into both explorations with both paths, I want to share what those two paths are all about. So I shared the hot air balloon analogy. We got deeply into it on episode one, but the two explorations, or the two paths that you can take to lift off with your hot air balloon, those are important to understand too. So the second question that we are exploring today is, what are the 7 dimensions of inner life, and why do all of them matter? So the sadhana approach and the 7 levels of conflict resolution, they're based on the 7 dimensions of our inner life. So quickly through the 7 dimensions, and also before jumping into that, each dimension is linked with an internal state. So when we explore one dimension, we benefit from growing towards a specific internal state. So I'm going to go through the 7 dimensions, and both approaches are based on those 7 dimensions. So they're the same on both paths. So when you choose to align yourself, you're going to go through the 7 elements of the sadhana approach. And when you choose to release the weights that you're carrying, you're going to go through the 7 levels of conflict resolution. So those two approaches are based on the 7 dimensions of inner life. So we'll go through them one dimension, and then towards towards which internal state you could be heading or leaning into. So the internal state will give you an idea that when you're exploring a dimension, if the more you feel that internal state, the more you know that dimension is being addressed properly for you. So there's no, like I said at the beginning, there's no special formula. There's no one size fits all. Everybody will resonate differently with those dimensions. So it's not about finding giving you all the answers and finding the exact solution that works every time. Everybody's different. Even for yourself, each situation will trigger a certain dimension of inner life, and then the way that it works for you to address that dimension, either through alignment or releasing, can change every regularly, or can change. You can need something different every time you do that exploration. I know that it's the case for me. Some practices work consistently to align or to release, and sometimes I need something completely different. Sometimes I go through the process, I explore those two paths, and nothing comes up. It's like a blank, and the message is to surrender and to be present and see what happens. And some other times it's a flood of of ideas and needs and requests, and I need to juggle the alignment and the releasing at the same time. So it's different. It can be different all the time. So hopefully you go through that exploration. You let yourself be guided and see where it brings you. So 7 levels, 7 dimensions of inner life, and why do all of them matter? So the first dimension is physical. So we see it in the sadhana approach. It's the physical, the actual body, but also the space that the body and the mind occupy. So the physical space for your body and the mental space that your being occupies. When we deal with the physical dimension, what we're leaning towards is safety. So the safer we feel when we do that exploration, whether it's alignment or releasing, the safer we feel, the more we know that we're dealing with the physical dimension. So uh, inversely, so the opposite is also true. The less we feel safe, if we feel unsafe in a certain situation, if we feel that our safety, our certainty is threatened, then we know that we need to address the physical dimension. So we'll get into it with the following 2 questions, but just you can keep in mind, you don't have to, you don't have to save that to memory. We'll go through the process for each question. But the first dimension is physical, and the more you work on your physical dimension, the safer you will feel. And then to kind of set up the rest of the dimensions, when you feel safe, that's where you can go deeper into the other dimensions. The more you feel safe, the more your inner peace will have the opportunity to deepen, and the more you can relax. It makes sense. If you feel unsafe, there's no way that you can deepen your inner peace, because you need to take care of that dimension first. When you feel safe enough to get to the second dimension, then you'll get to the emotions dimension. So all the dimension about everything related to emotions. And the internal state that you want to lean into is to feel alive. It's an internal state of aliveness. So the more you're dealing with your emotional either alignment or releasing, the more you're going to feel alive. If you don't consciously create alignment, if you don't consciously create that lift by pushing that emotional hot air in your balloon, then what you're doing is, what your emotions will do is that they're gonna damper a little bit. So it's, if you don't cultivate joy, if you don't cultivate happiness, the even the emotions that are sometimes less fun to have, like if you don't let go of sadness, if you don't keep the flow, even in anger, like if you bottle up your anger and you don't let it flow, you don't let it be, then it will create something in you, and you're not going to be aligned on the emotional plane. Same thing on the other side with the releasing. If you're having conflicts and you're not addressing the emotional weight that those conflicts are creating in you, then obviously it's the exact same thing as bottling up those emotions, and you're not gonna have the full experience if you don't consciously address those emotions. So on the flip side, as soon as you address those emotions, as soon as you release the joy, and you indulge in the loving feelings that you can have, and also you're releasing the anger consciously, and in a safe way for you and for others, of course, But as long or as soon as you release that anger, you're going to feel more alive. So when you feel like you're getting or you're feeling more alive, you know that you're addressing the emotional dimension in a correct way for you at this present moment. If you feel that you're you're kind of you're not as emotionally in the flow or emotionally connected to life, then you know that it's the emotional dimension that you need to address. So either with the alignments or with some releasing. Once you start exploring with the emotions dimension, then you will have access to the identity dimension. So the identity dimension, when we work with that one, we're leaning into dignity. So the whole idea, the whole purpose of dealing with our identity dimension is to regain, to reconfirm, to re-empower ourselves with our dignity. So again, if you don't feel your dignity, if you don't feel dignified in a certain situation, if you feel that there's a lack of respect, maybe towards yourself or maybe towards others, then you know that you need to address the identity dimension. So, and vice versa, the more you deal with your identity dimension, the more you're going to feel that dignity. Next level is about relationships. So as you'll see, the first three dimensions are 100% internal. It's all about you. Then the relationship dimension, we start going outside. So we get into a relationship with other people. It's still starting from the inside. It's still about what you're going through inside, but then there's an external component. We're starting to reach towards others with that dimension. With the relationship dimension, when we lean into it, when we start working with it, we will develop or we will feel more humble. So the internal state of humbleness will begin to emerge when we work with the relationship dimension. Again, when we lean into that, the more we work with that dimension, the more we will feel that internal state of humbleness. And when we feel that there's a power dynamic, or when we feel that we want to dominate, or we feel dominated, or we feel that we need to perform, or we need to really shield ourselves with our egos, and just go for like in a battle or at war, then we know that the humbleness is not present, so we need to address the relationship dimension. It's relevant that I share at this point that we go like one dimension at a time. It doesn't mean that you have to follow this process, this sequence all the time, but it is relevant to understand that if you're not safe, you don't feel safe, you won't have access to your emotions dimension. You need to feel safe enough to get to the emotions dimension. Then at that level, you need to manage your emotions, to let them flow, to feel a little bit more alive, to have access to the identity dimension. And then with the identity, the more you feel dignified, the more you have access to the relationship, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't mean you don't have access to any levels if you don't feel safe, but it's much more difficult, let's say, to work towards connection and establishing a relationship if I don't feel safe in my own body. So first we need to establish a base level of safety, then we deal with our emotions, then we deal with our identity, Then we deal with our relationships, and then when we're starting to get out there, but to reconnect with the world, the next level is communication, but more specifically, expression. So it's the dimension of expression, of self-expression. So communication, it's meant to be a two-way street. The purpose of communication is to be understood by the people that we communicate with. But because it all starts inside, and because we cannot control how our message is received from others, then we're going to focus on the expression side. So our side of the two-way communication, I can express, I can manage how I express myself, and I can manage how I receive a message, but I cannot control what happens on the other side of the communication. So that's why we focus on self-expression. So for the expression dimension, when we start working with that, what we're gonna the internal state that we're gonna develop, that we're gonna explore, is authenticity. So the more we align or we release the weights that are holding us back for our expression dimension, the more we're going to feel that authenticity. Authenticity, we will be more authentic, and our expression will be in line with what we're feeling inside of us. When we manage this dimension enough, we have access to the next level, to the next dimension, which is intuition. So when we feel safe, and you can see the logic, can I access my intuition deeply and authentically and openly if I don't feel safe in my body? Probably not. Maybe a little bit, but then will I be able to trust it? Will I be able to communicate both ways? Will I be able to feel to be humble in the messages that I'm receiving from my intuition? Probably not, or maybe very little. So it's relevant to start with the safety, make sure that I feel safe, then that my emotions are flowing. Then I have access to my rebuilding or regaining my dignity. Then once I feel dignified, I can much more easily connect with the outside in my relationships. Once the connection is made, then it's the expression. And then once I start expressing myself with the world, then I can reconnect with my higher self, with my higher purpose through my intuition. So the intuition, when we work with that dimension, the state that we're leaning into is nobility. So we or an internal state of nobleness, nobility. So it's the idea that when I have when I'm connected with my intuition, the messages that I'm receiving and the decisions and actions that I'm taking are much more noble. They come from a higher place. They come from my higher self, or the interconnectedness, or God, or however you interpret it. It comes from a higher place. So that's where we get the nobility. That's where we feel noble, by aligning our decisions, our actions with our intuition. I like to say that your intuition will never lead you astray. It will always guide you down the path that you need to go on. It's not always the simplest or the easiest path to go, but at least you know that you're gonna learn something, or you're gonna grow. It will get you to where you need to go. So when we deal with the intuition dimension, our internal state will lean into more nobility. So, and then again, if you feel that your actions or decisions or your words, they you would not describe them as noble. Like you need to go deeper. You need to access a higher level of consciousness to feel more at ease. Then you know that it's the intuition dimension that you need to address. Final dimension after the intuition, it's our spirituality. So the dimension of spirituality, when we lean into that and we start working with that dimension, the internal state that we develop is an internal state of abundance where everything is possible. So on the alignment side, it creates abundance in all ways. We're the our internal feeling of gratitude goes uh, towards everything. And on the conflict, on the 7 levels of conflict resolution side, it's the abundance of options and possibilities. So if I have an internal conflict that is holding me back, and I tap into the spiritual dimension, I see I see farther and bigger than the conflict itself. So I can transcend that conflict, completely liberate myself from it, and then access that state, that internal state of abundance. So those are the 7 dimensions of inner life. And why do all of them matter? Then obviously, if you don't address where you feel that you need it the most, then what happens is that you either don't feel aligned, or you feel that there's a resistance, there's a weight that is holding you back. So ideally, when we check in, we see where we need to put some energy and some resources, and that's where we can either realign what is out of alignment or release what is holding us back. So I hope that all of this makes sense up until for up until now. We're gonna explore quickly the 2 paths and see where that leads us. So again, when I share questions, it's questions to guide you, to guide your reflection. There is definitely no need to, no obligations in sharing what comes up. Feel free to do so if you want to, keeping in mind that when you share, it becomes public. So the first path that we're gonna explore is the path of where we often see resistance, and where we benefit from releasing, from letting go what's holding us back. So a question to for you: what are you carrying right now that you have not stopped to look at? So take a moment. We did the check-in. If you just jumped in on the live, I can see the numbers of people that are coming in going up. So if you just jump in, we did a quick check-in. Maybe you can do with through a quick breath work, a quick deep breath, and then look, feel in yourself where there's either some resistance or some misalignment or disalignment in yourself, in your body, in the 7 dimensions that we just explored, and feel it out, like through those 2 paths. So the sadhana approach for alignment, and the 7 levels of conflict resolution for the releasing. So now we're taking a minute to explore the releasing bit, the releasing part. So the weights that are holding you back, that are heavy to carry. So the question is, what are you carrying right now that you have not stopped to look at? So what feels heavy right now in this moment for you? And if you can match it with the 7 dimensions that we explored, so either the physical or the space that you occupy, your emotions, is it an emotion that you're kind of suppressing, it needs to come out? Is it on the identity? Is it an old identity that you're still carrying, that is limiting you to today, like right now? Is it on the relationships dimension? So is it a relationship or a connection that it's either heavy, it's getting heavy, or that you lost and you want to regain, to recreate? Is it on the expression level, on this expression dimension, where you have something to say and you're afraid to say it, or you said something and now you regret it? So something that is holding you back, that is heavy to carry. Um, the other level, intuition. Is it something that you're in contact with your intuition, but you're doubting the answers, or you're not in contact with your intuition and you feel that you need that guidance? And then finally, on the spiritual level, is it do you have a scarcity mindset, that you're always thinking about the what is limiting you and what you would need to change to access higher levels of abundance? So anything that you're carrying in those 7 dimensions that you would benefit from releasing, from letting go. So that's one of the path, one of the 2 paths. So again, with the sadhana approach, we're pushing hot air in the balloon to lift the balloon, but the balloon will not lift if we're not addressing the weights that are holding us back. So the first question in that exploration: what are you carrying right now that feels too heavy of for what it's bringing you? So that's when whatever comes up, that's your opportunity to address that side, to start releasing it. And then the more you release those weights, then the easier it's going to be to lift off your hot air balloon, but to feel more alive and to deepen your inner peace. Because ironically enough, when something is holding us back, we cannot go deep into our inner peace. And when something is out of alignment, when there's some energy missing in one of those dimensions, again, we cannot have access to the deepest inner peace that we deserve, and we could have access if we dealt a little bit with those 2 paths. So that's one path. What are you carrying right now that you have not stopped to look at? And now is your opportunity to look at it and just to reflect. There's no answers. There's no, solutions that you need to figure out right now. The idea is to check in and to see what needs to be, what am I carrying that needs to be released, and then we'll do the second question, which addresses the alignment portion. The second question is: which dimension of your inner life is asking for more attention right now? So which area, what are you carrying that you would benefit from releasing, and what dimension or what element of the sadhana approach requires your attention? So, well, basically, when an element requires your attention, the idea is to give it love, to give it energy, to focus on it. So when you find that element, that dimension, you can intentfully and consciously take care of that element, to give it love. So again, the 7 is the same 7 dimensions. Is it something physical, or within the space that you occupy, that you need to give a little more attention to realign in some way, to rebalance? Is it your emotions? Are there emotions in you that are just kind of yelling to be let go, to be expressed, and you're kind of holding them back, and you don't want to give too much attention to that dimension? Is it on the identity level? So is there an identity or a part of your identity that just wants to come out and connect with the world, and you try to prevent it, or you try to not look there too much, so you'll be you won't have to deal with that. There's the relationship, the dimension. So is there somebody that you want to connect with, and for some reason you're not ready for it, you're scared of the connection or the possible outcomes? Is there somebody that you need to stop having that connection, that your energy, when you're with that person, that energy is dampered a little bit, so you know that you would benefit in spending less time with that person? So is there one of those dimensions that is pulling for your attention, that is calling for your attention, which basically means giving it the love that it requires? Same thing for the expression dimension. Something you want to say, but you're out of fear, out of, it may hurt somebody or something. You're not saying it. At the intuition level, are you getting messages from your intuition, from your higher self, and you don't want to look at those messages because they might mean big changes, or they're not coming in the way you would prefer them to come in? And then finally, the spirituality dimension. Is there a source of abundance? And it can be financially, but it can be any type of sources, of source. It can come from anywhere. Is there some type of abundance that you don't want to look at because it would, from your perspective, it would mean something else? It would take you somewhere where you're not you may not be ready to go to that level of abundance. So it's the same thing on both sides. You either find where the weight you're carrying lies in one of those seven dimensions, and then you can address it, you can start releasing it. Or you can say that there's some misalignment or disalignment that in one of those dimensions that is calling for your attention. It needs your attention, it needs your love, it needs your focus to get realigned, to open up, and then you'll have access to the seven dimensions in alignment and in releasing. And then that's when working on those seven dimensions, on those two paths, each action, each step that you take on those two paths will deepen your inner peace. So it's not like you have to be perfect in both, in all areas for you to access a deeper peace. It's really about understanding that each step, just the step that you check in and that you realize where you need to release and where you need to align, that in itself will give you a little bit more inner peace, because now you're more aware, you're conscious, you know what's holding you back, or what needs a little more of your attention. And then you know what to do. So you know the next steps, you're more conscious, you're more aware of where you are and where you're going. So only that will bring you a little bit of inner peace. So every step that you do on those two paths will ultimately deepen, well, not ultimately, each step will deepen your inner peace. So to go deeper and to do more steps on those paths will determine the level of inner peace and aliveness and humbleness and safety and all of those internal states. The more you walk on those two paths, the more you explore those two questions, the last two questions, then the more you will feel that peace. So again, last two questions were: what are you carrying right now that you have not stopped to look at? So what is holding you back as an internal conflict? And the other one is: which dimension of your inner life is asking for more attention right now? Which element needs more love for now. Tomorrow it might be a different element, but right now, which element needs your love, needs your attention? All right. So I've been rambling for 50 minutes, and what I want to do is to leave you with a reflective question. So each episode of the Inner Resolution podcast is based on questions. It's an invitation to explore those questions and those topics, always through the two approaches. So the sadhana approach for alignment and the 7 levels of conflict resolution for releasing. So we're going to do that every episode starting next episode, episode 3. We're going to take one level, one dimension, and we're going to explore it deeply from both sides, the alignment and the releasing. And at the end of each episode, I leave you with a reflective question. So again, no answers, no solutions needed. Just carry that question, that reflection with you for the next few days, the next couple of weeks, and see where it takes you. So, question of episode 2 to carry with you a little bit through the next few weeks is: what would change if you turn towards your inner life just a little more this week? So the exploration that we did today is first we check in, and then we ask ourselves the two questions. What am I carrying that I would benefit from releasing? And where is my attention needed at this moment right now? So do I need to release something? Do I need to let go of something that I don't need anymore? Or do I need to realign? Do I need to give love to a certain element that would benefit, that would bring me that feeling of aliveness, and that would deepen my peace? So what would change if you did that, let's say once a day, once a week? What would change for you if you were a little bit more aligned and a little more feeling a little more free, a little more doing a little more releasing of the weights that are holding you back? What would it look like? What would change? What would happen? How would it feel to do that just a little more this week? So I invite you to carry that reflection, to carry that question for the next few days, the next couple of weeks, and see what happens. Remember to the process is very simple. You check in. You have to actually stop what you're doing and check in, maybe through meditation, like one of our friends said earlier, maybe through breath work, whatever works for you. Checking in and asking yourself the two questions: what do I need to release, and what do I need to align? And see what comes up, and then you have the opportunity or the option to lean into those internal states, to work with those dimensions, and to feel that inner peace a little more, a little deeply, a little more deeply for that moment. And then the thing, the invitation is to repeat the process as much as you need it, whenever you need it. Check in, confirm, do I need to release something? Do I need to align? Which dimension do I need to address? And then you have the opportunity to address the dimension and to either release or align and deepen your inner peace on as an extra bonus, as an extra outcome. I hope that all of this made sense. If you have any comments, any questions, feel free to on the live. We're gonna finish the live soon, but if you're looking at that on the replays, then feel free post your questions or to contact me directly, and we can have a quick exchange on the questions that you have on this approach, on the Sadhana approach, on the 7 levels of conflict resolution, and or on the question of the second episode, what would change if you turn towards your inner life just a little more this week. So that's my invitation for you, to turn inward, to connect with yourself, to check in and see what you need. Is it a little bit of releasing, a little bit of alignment? And then you'll know by asking that question, you'll know which dimension you need to explore and towards which internal state to lean into. I I thank you for your presence and your comments and your participation. I really appreciate you. Take good care of yourself, and we will see each other in episode 3, where we explore the first dimension fully with both paths, the dimension of the physical space, and we will deep dive into what it means, how to explore it. So I invite you to be there on the either on the live on Insight Timer, or watch the replays when they go they're published online. Thank you. Take good care of yourself, and we will see each other or chat very soon. Namaste, my friend.